Red vs. Blue, RWBY, Achievement Hunter, Funhaus are all different properties that share the commonality of flying under the banner of Rooster Teeth. With that, they all share the same path of trajectory of their parent company. Not only am I referencing the declining viewership that now plagues the production company, but also the many scandals that follow it. From overworking their animation team, severe mismanagement of flagship shows, or the many grooming allegations that requires a spreadsheet to keep track of. In their around 20-year-plus run, Rooster Teeth has seen it all. The once miracle company founded by a team of 5 friends that were leagues ahead of the online media revolution are now watching it from far behind. Some blame the corporatization of the company, largely pointing towards the dilution of the teams that many grew up watching. As these team members split into their own projects or left the company altogether, they left others the arduous task of filling the empty slots of once successful channels that are already severely out of date in terms of current trends. And so in trying to replace the missing core members and their older content, by not focusing on newer content, this recovery attempt sank the company, as many of its components were impossible to replace. But in truth, that explanation is as empty as their current channels. To find out how such a large media company that preceded YouTube failed, we must go through the rise and fall of Rooster Teeth. But first, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. With over 600 champions with unique skills at your fingertips, you can develop and assemble your team to tackle a sea of challenges, like raid bosses, dungeon runs, campaign battles, and even PvP arena matches. I mean, it's really easy to get into the grind of it all, especially when I have such great characters to choose from. In my opinion, some of the coolest you can get are Ursula the Mourner, for her chance to decrease an enemy's turn meter, but better yet Gentoro, who does well to eviscerate enemy minions and holds his own against demon lords. On the topic of powerful characters, this month you can expect new skins for the legendary Trundra Guilt Mullet, but even better, with the running Deliana Chase event, you can get the brand new legendary champion from the Hive Elves faction by logging in and playing Raid for 7 days between now and July 28th. Once you're in-game, enter promo code MyDeliana to get your hands on everything. Get 50 XP brews to instantly get your legendary hero Deliana to max level. For that and many more reasons, right now is the best time to get started, by either clicking the link or scanning the QR code right here. By doing so, you'll get unique bonuses worth $30. To break it down, you'll get Verge, who is an epic champion, 200,000 silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard. You can claim all this in-game right here, and all you have to do is click the link in the description. Rewards will be available only for the next 30 days and only for new players. Sponsor over, back to the video. Many current-day, popular online content creators typically have a similar success story on YouTube, with this platform and the algorithm launching them to new heights where they face the continuous challenge of maintaining an audience and steering their content through innovation and new successful formats in order to survive, which encourages other content creators to make similar content with their beginnings relying on emulating others as a base to develop. But that was not the case for Rooster Teeth, because the company and its website predates YouTube itself, leading to many problems as they'd explore the potential of the flourishing online realm. Unfortunately for us, due to personal information being on the older iterations of roosterteeth.com, many screenshots of the original webpage are lost to us. But there is a silver lining. Rooster Teeth was a rebranding from its original website, Drunk Gamers, which some screenshots dating back to 2001 are still available to view today. But the story of how that was established starts in the late 90s with Michael Justin Burns, known famously as Bernie Burns. Bernie, at the time, finished switching his major from pre-med to computer science. In doing so, he had additional free time that he used to explore the world of film and gather experience in developing a low-budget movie. But this did not lead him to a job in film. After college, he remained in Texas, where he started working at One Support, a very small but growing company that was in essence outsourced tech support. It was here that he worked an executive role and befriended many employees, two of most importance being the once self-considered arrogant but humbled Gus Sorolla and veteran Jeff, who at the time had the last name of Fink. Their tech savviness eventually brought them to develop a very crude and mocking site making fun of other websites that, due to harassment against them, was abandoned. Their experience with website development led the pair to create drunkgamers.com around the year 2000. Besides having Bernie join in, they reviewed games in the hopes of getting early review copies for free. But because of the disreputable sounding name Drunk Gamers, they found little developers or sponsors willing to work with them, except for one game that was known as Blinks the Time Sweeper. With the hundreds of hours it took not only to write reviews, but format the website for those reviews, the small amount of ad revenue they were receiving did not seem worth it. But when they experimented with a newer, up-and-coming format, namely video, the results were unprecedented, especially for the amount of work put in. To provide context, Apple had an ad campaign known as Switch, setting up cases where people switch from what is described to be a problematic PC to a simple and easy-to-use Mac, overall targeting less capable users. In response, those that knew the operating systems had their complaints, like the lack of games. So in response, the Drunk Gamers crew created a parody of such a situation with Gus Sorolla playing the role of someone who switched. This video was uploaded to drunkgamers.com and had to be downloaded to be viewed, as website-ingrained video players were a rarity. For about the 30 minutes it took to make and shoot the video, the results were phenomenal. Drunk Gamers, in their run of a little over a year, probably received a couple thousand readers. But this video, as Bernie describes it, reached half the country because it became viral. Virality in online terms has different definitions. Many videos today can be considered viral as they are mass shared across various social media platforms with a simple copy and paste of a link. However, back then, that was not the case. This video predates Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so it spread through the efforts of people sending it to each other via email and through the showcasing of other websites. A large feat considering the lack of social media infrastructure and needing to apply the effort to download the video as well. This video and the effects of it did more than help guide them towards a more successful style of content. Because the video became so widespread, within 24 hours of its upload, Matt Oum, one of Bernie's filmmaker friends in college, while working, found the video via his coworker, immediately recognized Gus, but was confused as to why he was on screen. So he contacted Bernie, where he admitted to creating that video. At that point, Joel Heyman, another filmmaker friend from college, got wind of what was going on. While Gus and Jeff, living in Texas, were part of his work and computer-savvy friend group, Matt Oum and friend actor Joel Heyman, living in California, were part of his filmmaker group. They knew each other from their shared gaming parties playing Halo Combat Evolved on the original Xbox, or rather original Xbox is, because this was before the Xbox Live online service was even released. So in order to get all 5 players in one map, they had to hook them up via LAN to hub, switch, or router, and once everything was set up, 5 players, or more depending on how many systems and controllers you had present, were able to play on a single map, specifically Blood Gulch, a map that, as per the name, encloses the 2 teams in a desert ravine-like setting with 2 flat cylindrical structures acting as the team's bases. That covers the Gulch part of the name. As for the blood, it is to allude to the combat that was meant to happen within this setting. And they did play the game as intended at first. But with many months, about 18 in total, of constant battle and enough time to memorize most aspects of the map, a few fixtures began to stand out, like a tree that seemed odd, a vehicle's name that didn't quite fit, or the lack of any precious resources in this desolate desertscape. From here, a sort of narrative began to form with a bit of comedic existentialism of the characters they played and the colors, or teams they represented, being the standard red and blue, adding another layer of gameplay to keep themselves entertained in the repetition of it all. Their experience and know-how on the maps gave Bernie the idea to record his gameplay and make videos giving tips and tricks to players wanting to get an advantage over their friends. While this series was a bit of a departure from the more comedic content of Drunk Gamers, it eventually circled back when he learned that he could add audio commentary to make the video more comedic and engaging, where he could inject his friends' inside jokes to the script. Through further experimentation with this series, Bernie discovered that if he letterboxed the gameplay, which is essentially cutting off the top and bottom part of the screen, with an additional player to act as a cameraman, it made the game look more cinematic as it took out the heads-up display. There was also a bug that allowed the characters, if facing a certain direction, would stand with their weapon in a casual, non-hostile stance, as opposed to holding the weapon in the intended firing position. Many ideas of how to utilize this potential were thrown around during this time. Take, for example, this trailer released on the Drunk Gamers website on September 5th, 2002.
What are you doing? Well, don't paraphrase. Don't... Look, I read what's in the script, and you type whatever I say, okay? So just type whatever I say. No, don't type everything I say. Just type what it's in the damn... That's not funny. All right, now that... Okay, that's gotta... take that off, because that is... For, number one, that's offensive, and secondly, I am not a cockbite. Seriously. I am not a cockbite. That is rude. Just put up the fucking logo, okay? Just put up the logo. Assholes.
Starting with recapping the events of the protagonist of the Halo series, to then shifting towards a side story of humans fighting humans. A civil war fought by Team Red and Team Blue. Following many of their other projects on the website, this failed to get the attention needed for them to produce the content. With their ambitions not realized, only 3,000 users and other more reputable review sites overshadowing theirs, it seemed that it was finally time to put Drunk Gamers to an end. So late 2002, shortly after the Red vs. Blue trailer released, Drunk Gamers was shut down, and it wouldn't remain that way, until they were contacted by Computer Gaming World, a now defunct magazine that wanted to feature one of their videos, presumably the Mac parody video. This video was to be burned on a disc that was to be shipped out with their magazine. As great as it was to have their video featured promoting a non-existent website, they knew that this promotion would have been in vain if they didn't resurrect their website. But it had to be something else. Drunk Gamers was a flop, and they knew that. With a bit of convincing, it was Bernie's Red vs. Blue pitch and teaser that he made with a few seconds of their voice work that the group finally settled on, and what the end of the video that they were sending to Computer Gaming World would promote. What this series was meant to be was that Bernie wanted to bring back the Halo videos, but wanted to create a sort of linear, episodic storyline reliant on his comedic writing. He knew this had the potential of being a series, so they re-released the Red vs. Blue trailer to coincide with the magazine's distribution. As predicted, this increased web traffic and brought attention to the re-released Red vs. Blue trailer. But it also brought a new inspiration, as viewers were particularly entertained by one of the insults used in the trailer.
I am not a cockbite.
With this gaining a bit of circulation, it occurred to be a good idea to take this as their production company name, but Texas would not allow such an absurd title to be registered. So he settled on a less vulgar but rather confusing synonym, Rooster Teeth Productions, to host the website Red vs. Blue. This only solidified their hope in the success of this project. Now with maybe a couple hundred individuals anticipating episode 1, production began in March of 2003. The production studio was Bernie's spare bedroom where his friends recorded their lines that would later be synced up with the pre-recorded video of their heads bobbing to demonstrate which of the 5 characters were speaking. Though as seen in this video of their live readings, there seemed to be a bit of doubt that this would get any traction at all, because to do so would mean it would have to go viral like their Mac parody video. But little did they know that was just one of the many challenges to come.
Why do you need white balance?
Your colors are nice.
No, I mean, like, why are we even bothering with the video for this?
Well,
I mean,
because
like,
you never know. I mean, it might be funny. I mean, this video is actually pretty interesting looking. And, you know, if it gets popular enough, we can just put, you never know.
the making of
Behind the scenes,
Why not
you know.
take it, right?
Yeah.
You okay with this guy?
No, this wasn't in the contract. I wasn't expecting this. I was hired for voice talent. A video.
When the first episode was recorded, synced, and uploaded to the website, there was little to do but wait. And though it was uploaded on April 1st, 2003, the number of downloads they were getting was anything but a joke. The first days of the upload, the video had up to 3,000 downloads. But then it started spreading, and they were seeing their hits on the website go from 25,000 to 100,000, all the way up to 150,000. With the circulation of this video increasing, not just on their website, but others that redirected to it, it was a clear indication that the pilot was a success. As for the episode itself, it took a very comedic and self-aware tone, with the characters remarking about how their fighting had little point or reason. While Master Chief was off on this epic campaign, they were left defending what was essentially a bowl of dirt. This is also reflected in the way the show was designed, not to be any action-packed film with massive battles or a strong story. The show was built in a way where it highlighted the many verbal exchanges between the largely incompetent Red and Blue team. Following this effective format of not so much story and or narrative, but the simpler interactions of underperforming Spartans, a week to the date of the release of the pilot, Episode 2 was announced and then available to download on the 11th. There was a big push to get this message across to viewers as web series were relatively non-existent, but if that could be established, then they could have recurring viewers and grow their website. Though these announcements may have sounded planned and professional on the service level, in reality things weren't so organized. The videos were typically created within the span of a week. That means the writing, the voice acting, recording, formatting, and uploading was on a tight schedule, one that competed against their current jobs, and with the success came much anxiety. While they wanted this to be a success, they never saw it growing beyond even a couple thousand downloads. To expand on this and the time period, video game series were practically non-existent in 2003. G4 TV released the year prior, which was a TV channel focused on video games, and even that seemed like an irregular move in the business world. Another large part of this was the licensing. G4 was in a corporate setting and had some assurances that they were allowed to air the video game content they did. Red vs. Blue was reliant on Bungie's assets as a medium, by 5 friends exploring uncharted content and unprecedented growth. If anything, they wanted less viewership for 2 reasons: to avoid getting attention by Bungie and risk getting shut down, that and bandwidth. It wasn't so much the increase of users on the website itself, it was the downloads that were driving up costs. And they knew if the second episode performed as well, if not better, then their monthly costs might go up a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 a month while bringing back no revenue. Still, they pushed on to what was further success. Opposed to the around 3,000 viewers the first episode initially received, the second episode released 10 days later and got around 200,000 viewers on launch. This again amplified by both their excitement in the project and the fears in managing aspects around it. But that was only the beginning. By the third episode's release, they had around 500,000 weekly viewers. This already trumps the majority of YouTube channels the current day, with the handicap that the internet user base was about 1/7 of today's size. It's hard to put into words how insane this growth actually was, and it was there for many reasons. As we know today, the gaming industry has exploded and new media like YouTube and Twitch have gone up along with it. Even today, there are niches that need filling, but back then, seeing gameplay or footage of games in general beyond trailers was an absolute rarity. So much so that it was basically non-existent. To see video game characters in such a way was revolutionary and gave Rooster Teeth a colossal head start in this multi-billion-dollar video game industry many of us partake in today, with the growth of Red vs. Blue being described by Bernie as, quote-unquote, a graph falling upward. This was balanced with the lacking of the financial capita and know-how of how to utilize it, and navigating it required much trial and error. With more problems solved, others continue to appear. This is a very strong theme surrounding Rooster Teeth in this time period. Like when Bungie, and to that extent Microsoft, discovered Red vs. Blue and contacted Bernie and friends about their developing series, To their surprise, they got nothing but support, and probably saw it as a promotion to the game itself. After all, they were hardly using, if any, of the actual game story or characters in their show. With Microsoft's blessing and a few restrictions on how a few potential commercial items can be presented, that solved one issue, but this still did not help drive down the massive costs. Not so much in the production, because all it really took was a $100 mic, 2 Xboxes to be set up, and some controllers and games. The real cost came from the exorbitant server fees to host the show, and the climate about commercializing any form of free content. Especially as early as 2003 was looked down upon, as it looked like you were selling out or being overtaken by greed. So they had to figure out a balance, a way to earn money without losing their fledgling fanbase. And so, on April 16, 2003, only 15 days after the release of the first episode, they, too much stress, announced they added a donation button, but made clear that no matter what, the videos would not rely on a subscription service. To encourage donations, those who donated would have access to episodes a few days earlier. Something they experimented with before by giving people who registered an account early access to their videos. So for every episode, there were 3 stages of releasing a video: sponsors, registered users, then finally everyone else. It may appear as they built this as an incentive to become more attached to their content. Though it did have that effect, it was most likely done as a way to segment the release as to not strain the website to the point of crashing as it often did. And as anticipated, many, particularly in the forums, announced that they would stop viewing what they perceived to be a commercialized series. More important than that is what they found, and that was that their supporters were louder than their detractors. And that is meant in the literal sense. Because at their work computer, specifically Bernie's, at his job at the tech support company, there was a cash register noise that was meant to go off whenever someone donated to them. And the moment it was set up, they went out to lunch to ease their nerves. That's when they got a call from their office saying that there was an issue with Bernie's computer, a noise issue to the point that it had to be unplugged due to it annoying their coworkers. That was the sound of success. They finally found a way to somewhat leverage the massive server cost of running their massively successful series, though that's not to say it was purely profitable, even with the shirts, caps, stickers, beanies, messenger bags, and hoodies they started selling, because their server costs doubled by the end of the month, following the trend of their growing viewer base. On that topic of a growing audience, when observed solely from a screen, it lacks impact. Whether it's 100, 100,000, or 1 million, those viewers don't necessarily translate past numbers on a screen, where their fame is seemingly isolated to the World Wide Web. It's at conventions or other gatherings of fans, where each number has a face attached to it, and the creator's understanding of their influence becomes more appreciated and grounded. Fortunately for them, this, like the unending spread of their series, was also fast-tracked. A little over 2 months after their first episode, they, on July 23, 2003, attended the first annual Film Society at the Lincoln Center because their series was nominated in 6 out of 10 categories, which they ended up winning Best Writing, Best Picture, and Best Independent Machinima. Machinima, not to be confused with the now defunct entertainment company, is a merge of machine and cinema, which is why its definition is a method of making animated film using software similar to that designed for making video and computer games. This came as a surprise to the Rooster Teeth crew that was still at its core of 5 to 4 working friends, with an addition of 8 friends helping voice other characters, all of which were not aware that this was an actual genre. They actually made their own name for the style of video creation that they dubbed Render Vision. This did more than open them up to other series like theirs, because this festival was held at the Lincoln Center in New York, which was presumably Red vs. Blue's first time premiering in a theater that was peppered with filmgoers and fans alike that were informed of their attendance through the Red vs. Blue PSA miniseries that would typically run alongside the show.
Yeah, we were just wondering if you guys were going to come fight us today, considering that, we're in the middle of a war and all. Because we've been waiting out by the tree for like 2 hours now.
Oh, crap. Tucker, you were supposed to send these guys a message and tell them we weren't going to be here today, that we had to go to that festival thing. Yeah, I sent it.
You mean the doodle of the octopus giving us the finger 8 times? That message?
And that wasn't clear? Oh, well, sorry guys, but we can't fight today. We gotta go to New York City for a few days.
New York? Where's that?
You know, I don't really know. I thought it was the center of the universe. Yeah, only to the people who live there. Yeah, we're going to this video festival, and we're gonna talk about the ways that we... Video festival? You told me it was a film festival. No, I didn't. What's a video festival? Well, it's a lot like a film festival, but for people with no money.
Those attending for Red vs. Blue approached the Rooster Teeth team, many of which can be seen in the majority of photos taken. This event, this conglomeration of people that never met but knew each other, eventually sparked something bigger from the Rooster Teeth family. But prior to that, they were still building the foundation of their online company, now with markings of a traditional one, as they frequently received interview requests and other forms of promotions and possible distractions in the middle of the series production, which is why many had to be turned down. With their continued experience releasing episodes while still working their other 45-hour-a-week jobs, with the 35 to 40 hours they spent on Red vs. Blue, as with anything time is spent on, there was a slight refinement in their craft and the way the company operated. Not a mastery by any extent, but a familiarity of what was to be expected. And even that did not go over well. The first season was planned to wrap up by episode 8. But as it progressed, they were unsatisfied with all that they were unable to introduce, so it was extended to 19 episodes. The final episode aired on September 26, 2003. The new problem here did not lie in the episode itself, but instead that the season was now complete. They now had to enact their plan to distribute the entirety of it both digitally and physically. The digital copies of the season cost about $10, while the physical DVDs would go for about $20 and would be given to the sponsors. With their time online, distribution in the digital realm was not all that complex for the team, at least comparatively to what they would experience trying to fulfill the orders for DVDs. And before they could even start there, came a string of questions with no assured answers, such as how many DVDs? As for the design, what will Bungie approve as the box art? Will they allow Master Chief? Should they even put their own Halo characters? Where do they store them to be packaged? How to store them? How do they send the amount needed in time? Is it even worth spending thousands on, considering there were already bootlegs floating around? Is there any interest in wanting a physical copy when all episodes are online for free? This is all a sliver, a narrow peek into what it took to run a company that was struggling with monthly server costs of $10,000. Even more interesting than these questions themselves were the way that the team came to their answers. Initially, they ordered 10,000 DVDs to be burned, because that was the minimum amount they needed to order to get a discount from the distributor. While they could not put Halo characters in the front of the box to avoid confusion with the actual Halo game line in the event that they would distribute these in stores, they went with the very basic Red vs. Blue heading and the Rooster Teeth logo as the prominent feature. That's not to say that their multiplayer characters were not present, but they were contrasted with strong efforts throughout the box showing that this is a DVD and not a video game. As for where the 10,000 DVDs were delivered, it was decided that Jeff's house would be the storage location, focused in both his garage and spare bedroom. As for the demand, and wonder if they could even sell those 10,000 copies, or even compete with bootlegs,
Friend. It turns out the people have been pirating our very popular web series and downloading it on a daily basis.
when their website crashed on launch day and they sold well over 10,000 copies, that answered the remaining questions and quelled initial worries, where they immediately ordered 10,000 more. It is very important to highlight that only the initial problem was solved, because now came the problem of distribution, where the only immediate solution, as they did not hire a company to do it for them, was to have the available members of Rooster Teeth package the DVDs around the clock. Jeff tells a story about how he would spend multiple hours packaging DVDs only to go to bed, wake up, and find out with the continual orders that they were even more behind on schedule.
Envelopes every day.
It was crazy.
Nonstop.
Those days too, because we got to a point it was a little after Thanksgiving, where we would stuff envelopes for, be 3 or 4 of us stuffing envelopes literally for 4 hours a night, and I would go to bed and I would wake up and we'd be further behind than where we left it. Yeah. And we just couldn't keep up with the demand, and it was such an awesome problem to have, but I remember we were making decisions like, do we make an episode of Red vs. Blue this week, or do we try to catch up on merch because we can't do both?
This further complicated by their ignorance of the U.S. postal system. With their knowledge limited to that of the average person's mailing needs, they did what the average person would do when needing to mail something, and that was throw it in a curbside drop box. But these filled up rather quickly. A temporary solution came to them when they found a receptacle built into a building that stored more than any detached drop box. This one almost felt like a bottomless pit. But while doing so, an employee, possibly noticing the irregular and sizable stream of packages flooding through the other end, came outside to where the team was still dumping their DVDs and yelled at them to stop. To which the Rooster Teeth crew panicked and made a quick escape. But they could not simply go back to their time-consuming tactic of filling drop boxes to the brim. They had to target that mailing center once more and plan to dump as many packages as they could before getting caught again. But this time, their reaction time was too slow, and the postal employee managed to catch up to them before they were able to leave, where they profusely apologized without knowing truly what it was that they were doing wrong. But the reason the employee stopped them was because he wanted to direct them towards a loading dock that was made for loading larger quantities and sizes of items.
Then we discovered that the downtown 6th Street post office, they had a chute that seemed limitless. Like you would drop a package in and you would hear it hit the ground like 20 feet below, and we're like, we could fill this up. So that's where we would go. And then one day a dude came running around. He came running around the side up at us with a post office uniform. I'm yelling at us, and we freaked out, got in the car and left. And we're like, all right, we can't hit that one for a while. Because we thought using the post office for its intended purpose was somehow, we were somehow breaking the rules. And so the next time we went to some other post offices, and eventually we had to go back to that one because it had the most capacity. And the guy came running around again, and he caught us, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "We're sorry, we're really sorry. We'll go somewhere else." And he's like, "No, you idiots! Why are you doing it this way? This is so stupid." And we're like, "What way should we do?" And he goes, "There's a loading dock. Everybody in the world knows there's a loading dock. Drive around back and just hand us the boxes. You're wasting your time and our time. This is stupid. You're stupid." And he was right. We were stupid.
Incidents like these were not isolated, and there was a growing list of things learned through trial and error. As their business acumen improved, they were able to outsource things like mailing merchandise or DVDs to other local companies that they already quickly outgrew. And from here, things sped up. There was always an existing problem of staff members moving out of state or even out of the country that created headaches for the team. But even with these continual problems popping up, they solved their core creating, hosting, and advertising issues. They had a foundation that could be built upon and improved, as they could redo their strategies for each season. And in 2004, with their continual growth and popularity, it gave them a bit of a foothold and wiggle room with Microsoft that allowed the back of Halo's protagonist, Master Chief, to be displayed on the front cover of their Season 2 case. With constant technical improvements, Red vs. Blue, just a few seasons in, was able to outlive most other machinimas, spurred further by its attachment to Halo as it was also growing as an IP. The falling upward, as Bernie described it, lacked any visible ceiling, and finally with that, they felt comfortable with leaving their jobs at the tech support company. A hard decision for Bernie as he was working a high-level position in the company, and Jeff was offered the position of vice president before leaving to focus on Rooster Teeth. There was clearly a demand for what they were doing, and it felt like they could not do enough to fill it. As they progressed through the next generations of Halo games to make their videos, in an effort to expand while containing the sketch comedy style of the show, they included other maps, characters, and began adding a few effects to spice up the videos. Though small, post-production effects were as far back as Season 1, but in Season 1 they were hardly noticeable. Season 4, however, was much different because of a Pelican. A vehicle inaccessible through most Halo games and definitely not available in multiplayer, landed on the character Donut in the season finale. While this video's focus is not on the Red vs. Blue franchise, it is important to note moments of key progression, as it directly reflects where Rooster Teeth was at the time, especially considering they finally began taking on employees to help with the daily operations. So with the conclusion of Season 4 in mid-2006, Red vs. Blue DVDs could be found at GameStop, providing another avenue for distribution. Still, that hardly helped their yearly and expected troubles on DVD launch days, mainly because their website was the first place that distributed copies and other stores were only allowed to sell it about a month after its initial release. Where companies typically fear demand being too low, it was always the constant fear of demand being too high for several days in a row on the season launch day, because as sales went up, the online store would constantly go down due to the large influx of purchases because the third-party stores they were so dependent on couldn't handle their traffic. The 5th season was no exception. Not only did the season have longer episodes, it also had more of them at 23, when 19 to 20 episodes was the typical amount. This season was also heavier on the effects, which greatly improved the quality of the show. That pelican that was added as a still image last season for only a couple seconds made a return, but this time with full functionality. Not to mention the other, both minor and major effects added to the show. If anything, this was minor in scale of what Red vs. Blue was doing around this time. To bring attention towards their size and therefore demand, tired of their store crashing on launch day, they signed up with Bank of America. But the results were still the same on launch day. The Red vs. Blue store was down, but more importantly, Bank of America e-commerce went down for 2 days because of them. This problem was eventually fixed when they signed up with Yahoo. Regardless, this was the selling power of the main series. The even bigger shift in this time period was their advertising power. Where they initially got much use of Master Chief and other Halo figures to promote their show, Microsoft was now contracting them, and in large scale, to promote their products mostly revolving around Halo 3, which was set to release late 2007. So they made additional segments promoting Halo 3 available exclusively through retail sites carrying Halo 3, promoted the now discontinued Microsoft Silverlight.
With the new ASP.NET Ajax framework out, you guys will be able to publish sites with all your stats and share them all over the world.
And had an exclusive episode on the limited edition Halo 3 Joon, which was Microsoft's attempt at a handheld media player which was also discontinued. It may appear that Rooster Teeth was wildly successful during this time, as they were able to rent out their first office that was actually an apartment. But they did have their fair share of failures, like the 2004 Strangerhood that released on DVD in 2006. This machinima tried to replicate the magic of Red vs. Blue, but in the world of The Sims 2. Its attempt to parody reality TV shows failed miserably and is often seen as a stain in the history of Rooster Teeth. There was also a miniseries using fear as a base that never received much traction, leaving Rooster Teeth continually and wholly reliant on the success of Red vs. Blue. And this is most likely why they invested so much into improving it via post effects. There was also another boon, but it was also somewhat of a problem that was arising. This is where we get into the flourishing site known as YouTube. Initially looked down upon as a competitor of Rooster Teeth, this website quickly eclipsed them as it grew in popularity, where uploads of their series could often be found on there. It was a grave miscalculation to consider YouTube a competitor. A simple observation in hindsight, but a skeptical observation in its early forms. Though now, we know YouTube is a service and to an extent a search engine. It relies on the content and creativity of others and could therefore appeal to everyone. This is true for a large range of online services, whether it's Google, Amazon, or YouTube. These all provide services for a developing internet. Rooster Teeth, lacking the financial capital or investors for such an endeavor, was reliant on their own content that, besides Red vs. Blue, continued to fail because they had a very strict demographic, as in around 2007, had a 93% male audience, practically restricted to those interested in the Halo series. And due to that realization, they bit the bullet and began uploading on YouTube during May of 2008. With the first ever video on their channel being a trailer for Red vs. Blue Season 6. This kicked off a sort of second wave of innovations through Rooster Teeth. They could have very well stagnated by making the same style Red vs. Blue and refusing to try different formats for the show. But this is how 2008 was different. Season 6 for Red vs. Blue was the start of the Reconstruction arc, a massive shift from Season 1 to 5, which were the Blood Gulch Chronicles. Reconstruction was to heavily rely on the storytelling, while putting the comedy the series is known for second. A very risky move that was to be a test of Bernie's writing abilities. With a greater focus on post-editing and effects this season, it wowed fans and introduced them to the start of a gripping storyline that explored the Red vs. Blue universe exclusive to the Rooster Teeth website. This was innovation. The problem was that this was only innovation towards Red vs. Blue. It was still their only successful franchise that supported their small company. Lucky for them, they knew and were close to their audience. And with the success of early YouTube, they were even making some money from it by partnering for a short period with Machinima. The brand confusion between the multi-channel network and the genre of Machinima was finally paying off. It also helped that Rooster Teeth was a uniquely searchable term, so there was incentive to capitalize on a new form of content. Their solution at the time was Achievement Hunter, a new section of the website that Jeff, now last name Ramsey, tired of only working on Red vs. Blue, found that there was a lack, but more importantly, a demand for achievement guides. Obtaining achievements is something that was a hobby of his, as it was usually a competition between him and Bernie to see who could rack up the most achievements. At one point, leading Jeff to rack up 10,000 points in the span of a week. And so the Achievement Hunter branch of Rooster Teeth was created with some new staff assigned to it, like Jack Patillo, that would later be hired full-time as employee number 9 of Rooster Teeth.
I also have my own achievables.
Shut up, Blue. We haven't even made any for you guys yet.
Yes, you have. See? Bleep bloop.
That's not a real achievement.
Yes, it is. Bleep bloop.
No, you can't do that. You can't fake the achievements. They have to be approved.
Bleep bloop.
Stop saying bleep bloop.
Bleep bloop.
Stop it.
Bleep bloop.
Stop it.
Bleep bloop.
Okay, that's it. I quit.
Bleep bloop. I had so many achievables.
What they quickly found with their Achievement Hunter videos is that there was interest in how to obtain the achievements themselves, but at its core, people were also interested in the gameplay that was not too commonplace in 2008, and the continued appearance of personalities in these Achievement Hunter videos on a website that relied on the one-hit wonder viral videos. They were way ahead of their time, along with a few other channels that dedicated themselves to creating a sort of series. Where Call of Duty commentary was popular around this time, Achievement Hunter, realizing that they could expand into gaming commentary via achievement guides, could capitalize on everything else. Guides on YouTube in general may have a problem where they do not provide incentive for viewers to subscribe, because they are only there for a particular video. And because of that, many of their achievement guides have a varying amount of views, with the more difficult achievements making an interesting watch. This was a stepping stone to what Bernie refers to as Generation 2 of Rooster Teeth, because they were now hiring more employees that were working on significantly easier to produce content. With several videos uploaded daily at extremely low cost, Achievement Hunter was a sound investment. More importantly, alongside the Rooster Teeth podcast that they started in late 2008, after filming around 10 episodes they refused to air. With all this, they were building a very important presence. Just as people were tuning into Red vs. Blue to see more of Caboose or Sarge, they were tuning into Achievement Hunter to see more of Jeff, Jack, and now Gavin that made several appearances. Bernie considers additions like Gavin and Jack Generation 2 as they were starting this personality-based content alongside the original crew. But they may as well be Generation 1 in the audience's eyes. It is true that they were not around since the beginning of Red vs. Blue, but they were around when the Rooster Teeth family started to show themselves off to the internet in non-narrative reliant content. This is to say that them and the many other cast members that were brought on in 2009 and 2010 time period do share the same amount of widespread exposure as one another, because that's when Rooster Teeth was slowly getting a foothold on YouTube. An important thing to have, considering that video game related content was not so scarce and becoming commonplace on YouTube, with their content still outpacing other similar online content helped by their over 7 years of experience. Not to say that there were not those exceptionally made viral videos that Red vs. Blue could only hope to mimic in different technical aspects.
Carl! There is a dead human in our house!
Oh, hey! How did he get here?
Like animation. Take, for example, this 10-minute long animation introduced to YouTube in 2007. where two protagonists of popular game series, namely Master Chief and Samus, face off against a Covenant horde and then each other before ultimately teaming up to create a fast-paced and well-choreographed battle where then the last quarter of the video, it is revealed that Master Chief is a woman and embraces Samus. What gripped viewers' attention was the first 3/4 of the video's non-stop action, with the comments finding it hard to believe that this wasn't done by an animation studio itself, let alone one single animator. As a video, in the aspect of entertainment, it was extremely well received. But as a technical showcase of Monty Oum, the animator of the video, he was a necessary hire for any company wanting to implement such stylized animation. Like Rooster Teeth, his talent could greatly improve any Red vs. Blue episode, which is exactly what the Rooster Teeth team wanted. And lucky for them, during Anime Boston, Gus Sorella met Monty. They exchanged phone numbers and later spoke to Bernie via phone call, wherein Bernie expressed praise of Monty's work and his intentions to employ him at Rooster Teeth. Lucky for Bernie, Monty was a fan of Red vs. Blue and would have loved to work with them. But unluckily, he took Bernie's request not as an actual want to hire him, but just as simple flattery. And due to that, he was later scooped up by Midway Games to choreograph the combat in a game that was never released, to then move to Namco Bandai to work on the video game Afro Samurai. Renowned for his work, it was not irregular for him to be invited to speak at various conventions, like the 2009 San Diego Comic-Con. His excitement undoubtedly swelled when he noticed that Bernie was another speaker on the same panel. With Bernie sharing similar sentiment towards Monty, after their panel, the two discussed Monty's potential career at Rooster Teeth, where he was subsequently hired. This hiring was kept secret from the public because Monty missed his window to work on Red vs. Blue Season 7, but was just in time to start work on Season 8. Now in 2010, bringing us to the same point in the timeline where Achievement Hunter was starting to take off. This brings us to PAX East 2010. An event, amongst other things, premiered Red vs. Blue Season 8. An experience that after 7 years of working on Red vs. Blue amazed Bernie and brought back a feeling for the series that he hadn't felt in a very long time. As for the fan reactions, why describe it when I can just show it to you?
But if you think I'm gonna sit one single pinky toe inside a blue base without my shotgun, you must not know who you're dealing with.
I said move.
That's it. Shotgun.
Yes, I have your shotgun.
No, I mean, shotgun.
What is this? You think I'm gonna give you your shotgun because you asked?
I said shotgun.
Shotgun's a code word.
Shotgun, damn it.
Here we go. That's what you. What? Wait. What are you up to? What is that noise? Do I hear
This collaboration of talents speaks loudly for Rooster Teeth's future successes. A collaboration of various talents nourishing its growing branches further and further. Though competing companies may pay more, many of these incoming talents want to work for Rooster Teeth because they grew up watching Red vs. Blue, like Gavin Free, of British nationality. He was an avid Rooster Teeth fan since its inception, and often found himself on the forums, which eventually linked him to talking to employees of Rooster Teeth. But just like Rooster Teeth, he was ahead of his time because of his mastery of being able to capture slow motion footage, a skill sought out by various movie studios, and now Gavin worked on many sets. Some of the better known ones are Dread, Hot Fuzz, and Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. He had many opportunities thrown at him and had notable creative potential, but he also had a dream to work for Rooster Teeth, and while they offered to hire him, he struggled to obtain a work visa to remain living in the US while working at Rooster Teeth. Even the movies he worked on were not enough for the board, because for many of the projects he was contracted for, he wasn't credited because the workload was too little to be credited in most movies. That changed with the erection of the channel known famously now as the Slow-Mo Guys. With his videos showcasing his slow-mo talents, he finally got interviews and therefore proved that he was valuable enough to be considered for and now given a work visa to work his dream job at Rooster Teeth, where he became one of many well-known personalities. Other well-known personalities include Barbara Dunkelman, that was actually a superfan like Gavin prior to being hired. Michael Jones, known famously for his Rage videos. What? Ryan Haywood, an employee that transitioned from being behind the camera to in front of it. And finally, Ray Navarez Jr., a member of the Achievement Hunter cast that often had the job of obtaining the most difficult achievements assigned to the team. With them and various other staff members, the team in the summer of 2010 adopted an actual office, something the fans visited in large scale the following year because of RTX, or the first official Rooster Teeth Expo. It was random pockets of fan meetups around the world that finally encouraged Rooster Teeth to host their own event, with the outcome just as unprecedented as the first episode of Red vs. Blue. Like the show, RTX would see increases in community attendance and therefore scale the years following. Now shifting back to their new office space, this step towards the makings of a professional company allowed designated work areas for professional, large-scale projects set in reality, because the team had much experience in digital content to the point that there was around 36 Xbox 360s in their office that was used in the production of Red vs. Blue and Achievement Hunter. But maybe there was a market for gaming concepts brought to reality. That's how Immersion came to be, a sort of Mythbusters themed show produced by Rooster Teeth centered around bringing video game concepts to reality. Reinforced by the already beloved Rooster Teeth cast, the often torturous experiences the cast members had on the show made for yet another well-received series. It was at this point where Rooster Teeth had enough capital to play and therefore experiment with. This, combined with Bernie handing off the core role of director for Red vs. Blue, meant that several different series entered production which saw varying success. Rooster Teeth could carry these flagship shows like Red vs. Blue or Immersion that had higher production value, but it was also a good idea for them to continue producing easy, cheap content like Achievement Hunter Weekly, where they presented gaming news amongst other things like the ongoing Slap contests.
For the Halo Reach multiplayer beta, which include jetpacks and loadouts for your Spartans, which is something radically different. Plead different.
You got slapped for fucking up.
Ow, that hurt. I hope that doesn't become an occurrence.
This style of content only required their existing personalities to keep viewers returning. Anyone else could make achievement guides or upload any form of gameplay if they wanted to survive on YouTube, a website that was now saturated in video game content. They had to rely on the only unique thing they had, which was themselves. Something that was reflected on the various videos they'd upload daily. Their Rooster Teeth Animated Adventures, introduced in 2011, was a series that took existing audio of their podcast and provided cartoon visuals, became immensely popular. It was more likely for one of these to have over 1 million views than not. And with their achievement guides getting on average less and less views by 2012, it was clear what direction they had to take. First, they experimented with throwing a wide net of titles varying from titling videos, the select levels they're playing. This is insert game here, a look back at insert game here, insert staff members here play insert game here. Such different titles with different forms of content, but one stood out above the rest. 2 words that instantly lets you know what the contents of the video are. Let's Play. A term and format that even back then was immensely popular. And we can actually show how astounding a change in title and slight change in editing can be. For this, we'll take this video titled, This is Minecraft. It includes Ray and Gavin doing what you would expect someone to do in a typical Let's Play, except the point is to discuss the game, making it a more professional and informative type video. It sits at 684,000 views. That's not a small number. Now let's look at their other video titled Let's Play Minecraft with Jeff, Jack, Michael, Gavin, and Ray. This time the focus was to enjoy the game. Banter here was encouraged. And more times than not, if you're having fun, there's a fair chance your audience is as well. This video currently sits at 16 million views. That's about 24 times more views than their This is Minecraft video. It's important to point out that they did other Let's Plays prior to this one that were successful but never to this degree. This perfect combination of personalities and a game on the rise that sole existent built up a generation of YouTubers made this Minecraft series a staple on their channel, easily outshining the rest of their both newer and traditional content. They even managed to keep the momentum going, because the first episode of any series may be deceitful in a way that the amount of engagement initially does not correctly reflect the ongoing series, as the audience may view that first episode and determine if they'll continue watching it or just stop from there. So it's a trial run, a pilot, if you will. But even 6 months in November of 2012, their 24th episode is at nearly 5 million views, because they transitioned towards minigames which made the videos isolated, meaning that you did not have to watch prior episodes to enjoy the current one. It might seem this year is being framed as the year of success, though it was actually more so a year of guidance, with the traction they were getting here acting as a guide of where to take their channel, or better yet, their company. Rooster Teeth even launched the Let's Play channel a year later that continued the traction as seen by many videos directing viewers to transition from both Achievement Hunter and Rooster Teeth to this newfound channel. Back to November of 2012, there was also a specific reason that November out of all these months was selected to showcase a random popular Minecraft video, because there was another video this month that was significantly more popular than that one. This video was actually as popular as their pilot episode for Minecraft, and that was the RWBY, or Ruby for short, trailer, released on the 7th. What was shown was a 3D anime character fighting werewolves in an artistic setting, where white, red, and black overpower the remnants of any other color. A very interesting design choice, but not as unique as Monty Oum's signature fast-paced fighting animations. The sequence ending with "coming in 2013. An interesting fact about this trailer is that he animated this in 2 weeks, right after the season finale of Red vs. Blue Season 10, a time most employees took as a cue to take a much-needed break. But that was not Monty Oum. His work ethic and passion were pillars of his character. This was not the only trailer to release. In the months following, progressing into 2013, 3 more trailers dropped of the series, each individually focused on a single female character. Monty's signature choreography was a staple of these trailers. There were also other prominent aspects, like the tiling of the trailers, red, white, black, and yellow, forming the acronym RWBY, making it clear that each lead had both a distinct color and fighting style, which involved melee weapons that doubled as guns, or at least used some form of gunpowder to reinforce them. Because the reveal date was closing in, they decided to premiere it at RTX 2013. Their convention had significantly grown in size. Even the year prior, they were granting the exclusive privilege of hosting the first ever publicly accessible version of Halo 4, and so began its scheduled release on the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel and their website, where as per their service, sponsors reserved the right to early access. And now we can shift the focus to them. Rooster Teeth, a company that has not just survived, but thrived in its 10-year existence, has built up a large fanbase with waves of people jumping on in different points in time. For that reason, whenever Rooster Teeth tries their hand at something new, as with almost anything, a section of their audience will hate it. We can summarize this by one of Bernie's well-known quotes: "The internet demands progress, but the internet hates change." It was something that they were becoming accustomed to. Like when they transitioned Red vs. Blue from skip-based to story-based, many people did not like it. They did not like the implementation of the detailed animations, and they did not like RWBY. Their larger shows, Achievement Hunter and Red vs. Blue, had a crossover of fans that were into gaming, but less of that audience was into anime and were blindsided by this show. The good thing for them is higher quality content tends to attract its own fanbase. Even if the first season gets criticized for some of its choices in writing.
So you know who I am. You got a name, sweetheart?
Yes, Junior, I've got several. But instead of sweetheart, you could just call me Sir.
Viewers almost unanimously praise Monty's fight choreography and passion for the show. It helped that this was a new step for the studio that was inexperienced with breaking into the anime genre with their 3D animation style, and that it was free. made ever more clear by the show's improvements on all fronts come Season 2, that exploded in popularity with an audience Red vs. Blue, even with it being the longest running web series at this time, could never hope to gain. The reason why is Red vs. Blue in its earlier seasons being reliant on dialogue due to their constraints with animation, dialogue that doesn't exactly translate well both by language and culture. RWBY, due to its style and choreography of the show as its leading hook, had no problem in somewhere like Japan, where Warner Bros. Licensed the merchandising rights to invest in marketing in Japan. They went as far as to hire a studio to dub it over in Japanese for the Blu-ray release. So they did it again. By 2014, Rooster Teeth had several flagship shows, dipping its hand into slightly different markets that shared some crossover with its fanbases. Due to the rapid growth, it was time for another expansion. Sitting at 80 employees, they decided on moving into Stage 5 in Austin, Texas, a once airplane hangar turned into a film production facility because Austin Studios was once an airport, a location that the employees of Rooster Teeth were allegedly producing around 40 different shows, and now one movie. Even more interesting than the movie itself is what it accomplished, with it being the most crowdfunded film on Indiegogo and the third highest crowdfunded movie of all time at $2.4 million by 37,492 funders. That averages to $66 per donator. As exciting as such a prospect is, this speaks in larger sense to both Rooster Teeth's ambitions not being aligned with their revenue. They are successful, yes, but everyone's catching up. As fast as they grow, other well-funded companies like Netflix, something they once considered a competitor, is now the website they always dreamt of becoming. That, and with websites like YouTube, they were being outpaced at every turn. One thing they thought could change this, and in some ways it did, was more money. Not from the audience, as that would be too much, but like most successful websites, they would need an investor or a larger company to fund them, or maybe just purchase them entirely. This brings us to the 2014 purchase of Rooster Teeth by Fullscreen Entertainment for an undisclosed amount. The best part, besides the money, was that many, if not all employees, retained their creative roles. And with their increased funding, there would be more positions to fill. In February of 2015, with some hinting by Bernie on Twitter, they established an LA office because, on the same note of multi-channel networks, as Fullscreen was growing, Machinima was burning. One of Machinima's better known and growing channels was Inside Gaming, a group that saw its potential hindered by the declining state of its parent company. And that's how we got Funhaus, when the 7-core production group went from Machinima to join a company with a good track record, none other than Rooster Teeth. With much negotiation, Rooster Teeth was able to hire them all under Funhaus, the new LA-based subsidiary of Rooster Teeth owned entirely by Rooster Teeth, with recognizable members like Adam Kovic, Matt Peake, Bruce Green, Lawrence Sontag, and James Willems, with its cast expanding well beyond its initial group in the following years. And just like Rooster Teeth, because of their favorable chemistry, they exploded in popularity with gaming series that relied on heavy drinking to exploring an older generation of PC gaming via the once popular demo disc given away to promote any which game. The stranger and lesser known the demo disc was, the better. It should be noted that there were many new hires around this time for various other established channels. That, and the Let's Play network was trying to expand contributors to their channel. This seems to be a sort of deal where other content creators were allowed to post to their Let's Play channel in a sort of partnership where they did not outright own any part of the participant's company, only the videos submitted to them. This banner is meant to represent their current Let's Play partners, and even though it is the most updated version that you can currently find on their official website, many of their partners are now defunct companies or gaming groups. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, we still need to focus on 2015, because this was a year of major change at the company, likely influenced by their purchase by Fullscreen. Under its belt, Rooster Teeth had over 5 billion video views, many series in development, one of which is the longest running web series and the second longest sci-fi series behind Doctor Who, and were now making content for subscription services like Netflix and Crunchyroll. They also obtained a dedicated fanbase, demonstrated not only by their funding of Laser Team, but also because there were 70,000 attendees at RTX 2015. which is a larger but probably cheaper to attend convention than VidCon. And that's how you sell a company. You bring the best aspects out. Though if you look close enough, there was writing on the wall showing a decline in views both on the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel and their Let's Play channel. Of larger importance was their slowed growth in subscribers. But that's just their YouTube channel. They still had their website that no doubt many accessed as their sole platform to consume Rooster Teeth content that only Rooster Teeth can access these statistics too. But we can access Google Trends, and what we find is Rooster Teeth, at least the amount it is being searched across Google, is also on a decline. It is true that there are many aspects kept from us. The inner workings of Rooster Teeth are reserved only for their upper management, so we can only speculate at this point why it is headed in this direction. Let's start with Red vs. Blue, that at this point was on its 13th season. A show that once held the entire machinima market in its hands has now just become a small fraction of it. If it was not the saturated market it was now in, it was its story-based approach that made it harder for new viewers to start watching. That doesn't distract that still, across the board, was pure saturation. Video game content, whether it was the Let's Play family or their main channel, was seeing ever-growing competition. There are even worse aspects about this than just their declining viewership, because many of Rooster Teeth's growing properties were being developed by extremely talented individuals that grew up watching their content and had lifelong dreams of working for them, like Gavin Free and Monty Oum. Less people watching means less talent wanting to join their company. And 2015 was a very difficult year in the sense that they were blindsided with the loss of a major creative. But more importantly, the loss of a friend and a shock to the Rooster Teeth community.
And, I don't know, there's some of you, I'm sure, that are watching the podcast who might not read the website or might not follow us in various forms of social media. But for those of you who weren't aware already, last Thursday, our dear friend Monty Oum had a simple medical procedure, and afterwards he had an extreme allergic reaction. He lost consciousness, and over the course of the last week, he's been hospitalized. He did not regain consciousness, and we are very sorry to say that Monty passed away yesterday, Sunday, February 1st, at about 4:34.
This podcast aired in February, a difficult episode to upload as they had to discuss the passing of a 33-year-old Monty Oum, who was the creator of Haloid and the renowned anime RWBY. The cause of death was a severe allergic reaction during a simple medical procedure. Many questions arose from his passing. The largest related to the company was about the direction of RWBY, to where the staff were going to continue the series. There were other moments, somber but much less so, like when Ray Navarez Jr., a key member of the Achievement Hunter team, left to pursue a career in streaming. Now focusing on the original 5 founders, with their company's growth, they shared a very unique experience of simultaneously working together as coworkers but interacting less so as friends, shown by a panel of the original 5 where Jeff has a few words to say about it.
I don't know, what do you guys miss from the good old days? I don't miss working 2 jobs. I don't miss that at all.
I miss being in a room, like one single smelly room with my 4 best friends 17 hours a day.
I do not miss that
sometimes.
At all.
I do.
Oh,
I do.
no.
I honestly do. I can go, I love our success, but I can go 3 weeks without seeing you in the building.
Jeff, I just want to point out, there's 4 achievement hunters back in the room that just went, oh.
I don't give a shit about them, though. No, seriously, I could go 2 or 3 weeks without seeing you.
Maybe.
Aaron and I used to live together. We're like best friends, and we like how much of our lives have we spent together? And I don't ever see you.
Why you gotta be
I
a
go
downer?
into your office all the time, and you're not there. And I just like sit down, sit on your sofa, and I'm just like,
You come in and get drunk in my office all the time.
I do that too, but yeah, I don't know. I miss those days when it was just us in a room.
Have you seen they're tearing down that Congress office?
Yeah.
This trail of depressing statements became a short trend for Jeff, peaking in late 2016 and early 2017, with discussions about how his 10-year-old daughter told him he's not the best dad.
Fix it. Now, the other day, I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I made a joke or something about being the best dad in the world, or like she was annoyed with me, and I'm like, you know, I'm like the best dad in the world, right? And she goes, she put her arm on me and she goes, you know, you're not the best dad in the world, right? And I said, excuse me? And I said, what? And she goes, and I was like, how do you know? And she's like, I'm pretty sure I know. She's like, you're a good dad, but you're not the best dad in the world. And I go, what about? I said, what about your mom? Is she the best mom in the world? She goes, I don't know if she's the best mom in the world or not. I just know that you're not the best dad.
So she's
in the
mad.
world.
Wow.
Jeff finding it difficult to achieve purpose outside of work, amplified by a sabbatical that actually wasn't a sabbatical because he still had shows to manage at the company.
That's kind of been a topic of conversation lately.
It's fine.
Do you want to lay down and talk about it?
It's been fucking a month, going on a month and a half. My wife's been gone.
You're being beat down by her success, is what you're saying.
She's successful. Yeah.
She's just basically abandoned you.
Super happy for her.
It's like divorce practice, almost.
Yeah.
Do you live differently when she's not there? Do you just like fall asleep on the floor and stuff? Or do you actually like live?
Do you
like
go
you
hungry
usually
or?
No, I mean I'm still. It's responsible for the child.
Right.
That we share together.
Right. She's responsible
in theory,
for you.
if not geographical location. So I still have to make sure that the kid doesn't die.
Right.
Yeah. But after the kid goes to bed, then I just usually go to bed.
See, I picture you
There's
doing
no
like,
grown-ups to talk to.
That's true.
I don't want to play video games. Like
I'm just following her around.
you, Millie takes brush her teeth or takes a bath or whatever, goes to bed. Then I sadly go upstairs because the dog and the cat sleep with her. So I'm extra alone.
God.
I go upstairs.
At least like build yourself a pillow for
I
it,
brush
man.
my teeth. I crawl into bed and I turn on. My cable box is broken upstairs, so I watch CNN on my laptop, CNN Live. I have a nightstand. I put CNN on the nightstand next to me. I turn the brightness down so it's not too bright, but I can still see it. I turn it down so it's a little too low, and I fall asleep listening to people talk about Donald Trump.
And every part peppered with his alcoholism and impending divorce. Massive improvements were made when he dropped alcohol altogether. Unlike Jeff, Rooster Teeth was having a harder time than ever recovering, because the stigma with companies is success centered around growth, and stagnation is death, and Rooster Teeth was dying, as all their core, excluding subsidiaries like Funhaus, were not just stagnant, they were on a decline. Even RWBY, while still growing, had another issue as it was getting hit with controversy. Specifically, a 15,000-word open letter by now ex-animator and once close friend of Monty Oum, Shane Neuville, who took part in animating RWBY. In this open letter, Neuville was throwing many accusations around, like Rooster Teeth's mishandling of the property. Readers' reactions are often split due to Shane's combative stance and difficulty to work with that might go hand in hand with his poor mental state sourced from a loss of a friend, losing his job, and being recently divorced when writing the piece, and that depending on the state of the show itself, fans may or may not tend to gravitate closer to it as an explanation for any unfavorable decisions made along the way. While we won't cover this paper in depth as its length rivals the length of this video script, we can quickly summarize some of the major accusations, starting with the Rooster Teeth team often not respecting Monty's decision on which animators will work on RWBY, disregarding his additions to the animation software they were using, having him rework scenes, Monty's dissatisfaction with Rooster Teeth's control over RWBY to the point where he allegedly wanted to take it off-site to his own studio with his own team, and after Monty's passing, they cut some of his scenes and story ideas. Similarly, according to Shane, the team disliked the idea of contacting his wife that supposedly shared visions and knowledge, or so the direction the show was meant to take. To reiterate, this came out in 2016, and we can use that as the year Rooster Teeth started to decay in other ways than metrics. There was a rot building at its core that would eventually work its way to the outer layers as a warning to viewers and a deterrence for those wishing to work at the company. So what happened? Why was 2017 so bad? There are hardly any visible issues available online of that year. That's because the issues did not hold much weight until it was too late. This started from a decision to change the Rooster Teeth sponsor system to the Rooster Teeth First program in mid-2016. Beyond a name change, First members would get access to exclusive SVOD or subscription video on demand shows. Exactly what Netflix is. The community of sponsors turned first members did not react to it too well, which is where we direct our attention to this Reddit post with Rooster Teeth members frustrated at the change, many citing a change in their symbolic representation, going from what felt to supporters and viewers investing into the success of a company they believed in to a customer and member of a subscription. A colder feeling that a couple times in this thread described as corporate and detached with their core audience. Still, there were positives about this transition. For new members, the cost of Rooster Teeth Plus was $20 for 6 months, but existing sponsors would be grandfathered in and paid the original price, which is half of that. Keeping with tradition, first members would get first access to the majority of Rooster Teeth's catalog and a couple of exclusive shows, many of which consisted of additional minutes of exclusive footage of the plethora of Rooster Teeth podcasts as to likely inflate their list of episodes and have something exclusive to release daily. This was made better with a few higher production series like Day 5, a series where the world is suffering from a disease where if you fall asleep, you die.
Wait, come on, stay awake!
Or Crunch Time, where grad students accidentally create a black hole in their college. These shows are great if you were already a fan of Rooster Teeth, but there's always a demand for more exclusives, more content, more incentive for people to subscribe to their first program, both externally by viewers and internally by upper management. This is how we veer back into 2017. It was this year that some employees were seeing a push to create more and more shows, to sell subscriptions, to increase their profits, and get them out of this rut of declining viewers online.
So luckily there was a company that was interested in acquiring groups that were hungry to grow. So for the first year or two at Rooster Teeth was basically like really early machinima, where it was a little more focused on creators and investing into them and getting them what they want and need. But that also sort of changed when their priorities changed, because they tried to launch a bunch of premium content to get people to sign up for a SVOD service. And then really at some point the company either, and my perspective, I don't have any visibility on numbers, but this was the culture, is that the company would succeed or fail based on how these SVOD shows did.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's a lot of pressure for the talent itself. That's insane.
Now with this added pressure of the adpocalypse that put a small dent into Rooster Teeth's and YouTube as a whole's profits, something that we later learned was commonplace for companies larger than Rooster Teeth was that these companies saw the views content creators were getting on YouTube, then saw the numbers Netflix had. The big difference was the money. Per viewer, Netflix was making significantly more than YouTube, leading to the ingenious idea of many companies to promote their own SVOD platform, expecting audience members to be dedicated enough to follow exclusive content by their favorite content creators off-platform. Something more difficult in itself, made ever more of a fanciful plan when they expected people to pay for the content of which was already being well oversaturated by competitors that often peddled superior and free versions of similar content. There was an honest belief that companies like Fullscreen would be able to attract people to pay up to $10 for a lackluster series that could somehow compete with competitors that hosted a couple thousand shows. The interesting part about this is, along with Rooster Teeth establishing its own SVOD program, Fullscreen had its own separate subscription service that actually shut down in November of 2017. This focus on SVOD was one of the pillars of Rooster Teeth. Actually, it's one of the many pillars that were propped up during this video to show how Rooster Teeth as a company was staying afloat. Big shows like RWBY and Red vs. Blue are another, that by 2017 were getting flack for design decisions, with RWBY being criticized for its pacing and slower combat. Red vs. Blue for its continuation, after some fans believed it should have ended with a strong conclusion in Season 13, but at this point has continued to Season 15. Regardless, they were retaining almost the same amount of viewership on YouTube, and of course many were staying on board for the core personalities like that of Jeff, Bernie, Gus, Gavin, Jack, Barbara, and others depending on what show you'd watch. The last and strongest pillar of Rooster Teeth was its reputation. From this point on, the focus will be on Rooster Teeth's reputation, its YouTube content that was powered by the core cast, and its animation, These three pillars carrying its success were degrading and calling for the impending fall of Rooster Teeth. We will start small in 2018, focusing on the original cast members many viewers were fond of, and continue to watch Rooster Teeth 4. Like Jeff, for example, that appeared less frequent, and slots were often filled with newer cast members that had their own difficulty in that the community typically hated them for a period before adapting them. But there were more reasons than the chemistry with the newer and older crew feeling weak that culminated in viewers' mass departures. It's also that they became masters of putting content out, but failures at keeping it both current to reflect what was popular at the time, and also keep the quality up. That could be a reason that 2018 Rooster Teeth had only about a quarter of viewership that 2013 had, or the often cited departure of Ray in 2015 as he was unfulfilled producing the same tired content. Another explanation is that most older gaming channels were on a decline at this point, especially those that got their big break from Minecraft, meaning YouTube audiences were transitioning to newer gaming creators. But how much of it played a hand is impossible to know with current information. That covers the non-scripted, lower production side of Rooster Teeth. Now for the higher-end animated shows that it was known for that in 2018 were controversial. Not for the writing or any other facet of its post-release quality, it was much worse. Because Rooster Teeth had expanded well beyond its two flagship animated shows, and created other animated series like Camp Camp, RWBY Chibi, Nomad from Nowhere, and now in production, Genlock, a sort of RWBY-style mecha anime that was being directed and written by Gray Haddock, a voice actor that through several years at Rooster Teeth worked his way to that position where he allegedly did not have close to the needed experience needed to run such a large and important division. Alongside directing Genlock, he was also in charge of Rooster Teeth's entire animation department. 2018 was also the year that AT&T acquired Warner Media that owned Otter Media that owned Fullscreen that owned Rooster Teeth. It is possible that through AT&T or its subsidiaries, money was being tightened and the budgets for several of Rooster Teeth animations were not set for a comfortable yet efficient workflow by the aforementioned budget, or even mismanagement made further problematic with the inclusion of Genlock's expensive scenes and voice talent. Keep in mind that at this point, Rooster Teeth had somewhere around 350 or so employees, with an unknown amount dedicated to said animation department. Bernie was proud at this point of both retention and being able to push on where there was doubt from the audience. These are two things that wouldn't hold well entering 2019. See, because according to this lengthy Reddit post with detailed information sourced from ex-staff members, Gray had this passion project of creating Genlock, but not the resources dedicated for it. So he began, according to ex-staff members, pulling resources from Nomad from Nowhere into his own show Genlock, causing delays in Nomad from Nowhere while simultaneously being unable to prevent Genlock from being delayed in an already difficult production cycle considering that shows are worked on one after another, and where overtime and the infamous crunch work style is commonplace. Many sources even point towards unpaid overtime where 80 hours a week destroyed employee morale, and an unnamed source gave the generous estimate that 1/3 of both RWBY Volume 6 and the first season of Genlock that was already having episodes cut was made free because of the unpaid overtime and the new addition of internships. Dozens of interns were taken on 90-day, unpaid, temporary contracts made all the more easier because of Rooster Teeth's grand reputation and employee retention that even Bernie totes. It would be all worth it, because after these 3 months of work, they would be offered a permanent spot in the Rooster Teeth team. They just had to make it through. When that day finally came and they fulfilled their obligations, the only thing they got out of it was work history for their resume and trying to find a new job. The most these ex-interns could do was post about it on Glassdoor, a website where current and former employees anonymously review companies that by March of 2019, Rooster Teeth had 44% recommend to friend percentage, a number that eventually dropped to half that amount due to more negative reviews in the animation department. They made the decision, like most of their shows, to make the first episode free. However, it was only available on Rooster Teeth. A big misstep as they barred a section of their core audience from being exposed to it during the crucial time of its season premiere, only for it to be uploaded on YouTube 2 months later. The rest of the series was available for Rooster Teeth's first members, and because of prior decisions and lack of meaningful marketing decisions, the show, financially, was a flop. But the quality was good enough for it to get renewed for a second season. One that Grey Haddock would not see, with the Genlock viewership declining and the negative Glassdoor reviews piling discussing the unpaid overtime, and Grey's disorganization and lack of clear direction that often brought on more work. It was a matter of time before he was no longer working at Rooster Teeth. Many of these Glassdoor reviews were compiled into a post on Tumblr, and started spreading to content creators and the Rooster Teeth community. With its spreading, there was further questioning into the legitimacy of these Glassdoor reviews. That was quickly remedied when the creator of Nomad from Nowhere spoke in favor of the credibility and reinforced much of what was said. Thanks to this fire under Rooster Teeth, CEO Matt Holm, who was one of the original 5 founders, acted immediately by demoting Grey into a strictly creative role. To replace him, there would be 2 heads of animation to avoid an abuse of power and deter mismanagement under one person. Grey eventually left the company, and possibly done as a fix to their budgeting issues, the price of Rooster Teeth First increased the following month. But it gets worse, in all departments. Here is footage from The Vicious Cycle, a game from the Rooster Teeth studio established in 2017. They helped publish and develop some games. They finally tried their hand at their own game, The Vicious Cycle, released on August 13, 2019. Don't let the battle pass fool you. The game died on release, and games were impossible to find because of the lack of players, so it was quickly pulled from Steam and is now unpurchasable. Keeping with this pattern of the doom surrounding Rooster Teeth, Bruce Green, known for the continual success of Funhaus, announced on September 3rd, after a over month-long sabbatical, that he was leaving Rooster Teeth. He was one of many departures, but few of the voluntary ones, as news broke out that 50 employees, or 13% of Rooster Teeth's workforce, was let go, and most of the original 5 founders were now stepping down into creative roles. A decision that was most likely not their own, but being the faces of the company, they were the only ones that could address it.
This has been, I think it goes without saying, an incredibly tumultuous and painful 24 hours for us. And most of you have been so gracious and kind, and I thank you. But there's another portion, a much smaller portion, that y'all motherfuckers just want to watch Rome burn. And you've been decrying the end of Rooster Teeth since 2004. You know, people started saying that our days were numbered when we created the Strangerhood and it wasn't a hit. Our sophomore release was a failure. When we created RT Comics, somehow that meant the end of the company. When we did away with mod points and the emotomy, that was it. People were leaving in droves. Rooster Teeth was over. And if you don't know what those things are, you haven't been around as long as you think you have. We have dealt with these crises since almost day one. And for those people, the people that just want to see us fail, there's nothing I can say that's going to make sense to you or that will be enough. You will pick apart my words, my intentions, my syntax, my inflection, and there's not a lot I can do about that. And so I can't assuage you. There's nothing I can do about it. But ultimately, I reached this decision to do this podcast and to have this brief conversation with you as I was driving to work today, because I thought that there's about 50 people, 50 talented, hardworking people who woke up this morning and probably wanted nothing more than to go to work and to do their jobs. And for those people who no longer have that option, it'd be fucking disrespectful for me not to come in and do my job. And so this is off topic, and I'm Jeff Ramsey, and I hope that there are some other people to do this with because I'm running out of stuff to talk about.
At this time, there was a complete shift in reputation and frustration in even those that retained their positions. Like Lawrence Sonntag, that as much as he did not want to believe it, this was the reason he departed from Machinima. So many decisions out of his control and a large lack of funding through Funhaus that was doing well and increased growth in a year where Rooster Teeth allegedly made $20 million less in revenue than they did the year prior. So even with Funhaus' success, Lawrence, at the time of these firings, was given 2 days' notice that many of his employees were being let go. Fed up with the collapsing company, he left later that year.
And I busted my ass to not only like do right by all the people that were kind of on the team because they had been jostled around. We got a group of refugees from Machinima finally going away. Also got to work with a lot of people, got to work with some ex-Screw Attack guys.
Yep.
And then some people who were working on the No, kind of, it was basically just like good people who had been sort of shifted around between projects a lot. Grouped them all together, and I was like, okay, these people deserve like representation. They deserve like, if they want a new desk, they should get a new desk. They deserve all those things.
Yeah.
So I really tried very hard to not only make the channel a success on the numbers, which it was, but also to make sure that everyone finally felt like they were part of a stable team. And then I got 2 days notification that 25% of the team was getting let go. Yeah. And that was after like 9 months of busting my ass, thinking that if I showed results and like gave a positive work environment for people, that those results would shield us or inoculate us from the negative consequences of the rest of the company.
The problems kept coming. In November of 2019, Rooster Teeth's vice president, Michael Quinn, was fired after he was charged with aggravated assault and was being accused of beating and choking his wife until she went unconscious. All these events in 2019 coming together to destroy Rooster Teeth's reputation as a workplace and a time for fans to reminisce for the better days of Rooster Teeth. More so now because Bernie announced that while he would still be working in the background at Rooster Teeth, he was leaving the Rooster Teeth podcast on its 564th episode, wherein Jeff stays stalwart on how the success of the company has divided them.
No, I love being on camera with you guys. That's my biggest lament of the success of Rooster Teeth is just like it required us to kind of run off and run different parts of the company, and we didn't get to do this stuff as much, you know, in the later years.
Yeah, you mean just from the natural scale of it, but then people would be sick of us anyway. I mean, that's the thing too. It's like
people are sick of us. They tell us all the time.
Well, it's fun. Being a web influencer was a lot of fun, and it's one of those things. It's like just like at the top of this when I said that people will often say, "Hey, I'm not going very far away," and I'm not calling out anyone in particular. Everyone does this because it's like usually people are involved with a big brand. Ray did it when he left Achievement Hunter. Bruce did it when he moved on from Funhaus. You should say that. It's like, you know, I'll be around because you don't want people to get scared about the thing you helped build. But I also think it's important too. Like I was gonna say this to Bruce at the time. It's like it's okay to pause and like say this is the end of a thing and this is good and this thing was good and there'll be something new later. You don't have to not pretend, but just insinuate that it's gonna continue.
Yeah.
Likewise, I've also learned in my life, don't ever say never or say I'm never gonna do this again. I'm never gonna, because 2 years from now I'll be like, I need to do this. Jeff asked me at dinner last night. He goes, "You're gonna miss the outlet, for on a weekly basis to be able to talk to a lot of people and share your thoughts." And last night I was like, no. But maybe in 2 years, maybe that'll be happening.
If not appearing in content, Bernie was still working and could pop up in other productions taking place in Rooster Teeth. However, this changed too in 2020, a year decried by many for being terrible for a multitude of reasons. For the fans of Rooster Teeth, this tweet may have been one of them, because it was Bernie's letter informing readers that he was moving outside of the US and departing from Rooster Teeth to work on his own projects. He was still allowed to pitch Rooster Teeth his ideas, but overall he was no longer part of the company. It didn't help that less than 2 weeks ago, it was discovered that Joel Heyman, another founder, was no longer part of the company. The possible reason, however, was much different, as to where some speculate that Bernie was jumping from a sinking ship, though he says otherwise. The reason for Joel Heyman's departure is that he just stopped coming in after a thing. Maybe that thing could have been a clash in political beliefs, as now not being part of the company, his commentary on controversial issues could be seen as politically charged, like commenting on the recent riots in the US by tweeting, "Do bricks carry COVID-19?" One could argue that this is not political commentary, but when put alongside his tweets directly referencing politics, his alignment becomes a bit more clear and is against the one of Rooster Teeth's. This brings us down to 3 founding members that still exist in the company: Gus, Jeff, and Matt Holm. Joel Heyman's departure reflects a large proportion of the disinterest in Rooster Teeth, and that is politics. Adding politics to any form of entertainment that is not based in politics is a very dangerous game. While you solidify your bond with those of similar beliefs, you push away those of opposing beliefs and those not wanting to listen to political rhetoric from any side, giving people another reason to both love and hate Rooster Teeth. Either way, as they slowly embrace their political side, a smaller portion of people stopped watching their content that discussed it, and Rooster Teeth made enemies of content creators of the opposite political side. For that reason, they purged some of their older content that does not reflect their current beliefs, or simply because it was too controversial for any company by today's standards. In June of 2020, the same month Bernie left and the same month many learned of Joel being fired, Rooster Teeth was getting flack for another reason. Sourced from this tweet of a current Rooster Teeth employee saying, quote, "In case I haven't been clear, white supremacists have no room in my audience nor my community. Racists have no room in my audience or my community," unquote. This sparked a tweet chain between Rooster Teeth employees echoing their sentiment and the harassment levied at ex-employee Mika Burton, who is daughter of LeVar Burton, known well for his acting role in Star Trek.
I see where you're going. We shift down, then kick hard into warp 9. Yeah, come back fighting. Woo-wee!
Eventually, this tweet chain led to her responding to them by saying, quote, "I've been very quiet about my experience with Rooster Teeth, but with the now vocalization of regret of lack of support from ex-coworkers, I can say with confidence I didn't leave because of the community. I left because of the company," unquote. This tweet was bad enough for the company, and it got that much more traction when her father responded with, quote, "So proud of you for speaking your truth, kiddo. I know you've been holding this for 4 long years. As a company, Rooster Teeth failed you and your right to work in an environment absent of blatant racism. Hopefully now they will address their toxic company culture," unquote. What this was partly in reference to was a 7-minute-long clip dated back to 2016 of Mika's rant.
The fact that feminism is still a bad word when feminism literally means equality of the sexes is a problem. Until women are completely treated as equals, then it's gonna take a while. I mean, it's also just like racism. It's gonna take a while. If someone actually says to me, to my face, racism is over, I will kick you so hard you will taste my shoe. But it's just the thing. Like, it's gonna take a while for things to change. And I know that as a black bisexual woman, I know that all of the minorities that I am, I'm not going to be equal for a really long while. Not everywhere. In some places, like in some parts of LA, people are like, she's just a person, and that dude's just a person. But if I go to the deep south, ooh, the things that will be told to me, you know? It's like, I know that it's not good. The world is not good that we live in, but it's not all shit either. And I know that I need to take my part to change, and everybody else needs to take their parts to change, because it's kind of does, like, on one hand, I'm proud to be a black woman. On the other hand, I'm ashamed to be a black woman.
Really? You use the word ashamed?
Oh my God. Until I think about 2 years ago, I hated being black.
Ripped from the podcast, Off Topic, episode number 27. The community response at this time was not one in favor of her, as seen by the like to dislike ratio. What was more prominent now to Rooster Teeth was their inaction in defending her. Coming back to that tweet chain, Rooster Teeth's response was quite immediate. Besides Jeff talking to Mika in a nearly hour-long phone call to apologize for not having her back, Jeff also hosted Off Topic episode 236, taking the controversy head-on. This episode opened with a visually distraught Jeff and was embodied with a serious tone. Jeff apologizing profusely throughout it, citing his own struggles blinded him from the previous ongoing issues the company had, and encouraging to take on employee Fiona's perspective that was having similar issues within the community.
If you didn't see it, a former Achievement Hunter employee named Mika Burton yesterday, in the wake of all of the Black Lives Matter controversy that's going on right now, and this revolution that's happening, I think it's probably the new civil rights movement. I know we're all really raw and on edge right now because we're watching our country burn to the ground. And in that process, Mika shared her experience working at Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter. And it was like a fucking punch to the gut that I needed.
I hated knowing that if I was in a video, there would be more dislikes than likes because of it, or there would just be more dislikes than usual, or that the video won't get as many views, and it's just it's things because I can't change, and I just seeing the people making petitions, I'm disgusting. Look at me, hold on, I have to use my t-shirt.
You're beautiful, Fiona.
Sorry, thank you.
No, I agree. That was gross, but that's okay.
It's disgusting.
At some point, I saw a comment from a user. This is my daughter's maybe 18 months old, maybe a year, that said, "It's a great day to have somebody working on my yard." That said, "I don't know why Jeff considers and calls Millie his daughter when Griffin has been so filled up with cum by so many of the Rooster Teeth employees that it's really a crapshoot who she belongs to." And I lied, and I've used it as an example of how I had made a decision that day that I could get on a plane and I could fly to where that kid lived and I could beat the shit out of them, or I could not let it get to me, and I could not let words matter, and I could be better than it and be above it. And I thought I did, and I thought I was. But what I've learned over time is I just made a wall, and I just refused to see. I built a defense mechanism around the community and around our audience and around social media and around the internet that I just decided I wasn't going to let words bother me anymore. But what really happened, and I advocated for others to do that, but what really happened was I just internalized it, and I lied to myself, and I told myself I was over it, and I told myself that I wasn't letting it bother me, but it did, and it still does, like 12 years later. And I wish, and I got kind of broken that day by our community. And I'm sorry that I lied to myself, and I'm sorry I lied to all of you coworkers when I would give you that story, and I would tell you that if you don't let it bother you, it can't bother you, and to be better than it and to rise above, because I'm not better than it and it bothers me still.
This episode was well received by the Rooster Teeth community. Many comments discussed how difficult of a year this was for them with the many departures taking place. But 2020 was not well known for this controversy. It was another one that was probably the main reason many of you wanted this video to be made. It was Rooster Teeth's Ryan Haywood and Funhaus's Adam Kovic that amounted to what is possibly Rooster Teeth's worst controversy. Starting in September of 2020, the website LPSG, standing for Large Penis Support Group, offers many services, including forums discussing and sharing sometimes leaked photos of web personalities' male genitalia. That's where the first instance of Adam Kovic's leaked nudes appeared. More importantly were leaked nudes of Ryan Haywood, a core member of the Rooster Teeth team since the early 2010s. So within these discussions were also nudes of Ryan Haywood, who is also married. Though unlike Adam Kovic's situation, Ryan Haywood has kids. And also unlike the Adam Kovic situation, there was a need to make a spreadsheet due to the gradual increase of over 30 accusations. You can expect people to contest accusations because it takes minimal effort to do so, and in the past there have been cases of fans developing false narratives for fame. This was not one of those cases. While some are anonymous, there were two quickly released videos of those involved with Ryan Haywood. First was Tessa's video recounting her interactions with Ryan while she was 17.
My name is Tessa, and I've had an experience with Ryan Haywood. He did not know that I was 17. He thought that I was 18. This whole thing ended 2019 at PAX. We met up again, initially with the plan to fuck, and it ended up not going through. I, at that point, was really just not comfortable.
Though she put forward the lie that she was 18 in order to talk to him, to the effort that they would eventually sleep together. Nudes and sex were exchanged, but she backed out before the date arrived. The same thing cannot be said about Michelle, that explicitly informed Ryan that she was 17 at the time they had sex, with Ryan responding with he trusted her. This is a way of saying that he expects her not to leak their interactions. and as she was coming out with her story, Ryan reached out to her pleading her not to. And Michelle further divulges not just photo evidence of her in the hotel room with Ryan, but also provides the information that he took her virginity and during the process, without permission, removed the condom. These two very important videos paved the way for others coming out with their experiences against Ryan Haywood and his behaviors. The act of removing the condom is frequent in the many accusations against him, with some fans, knowing he was married, Haywood persuaded them under the guise that his and his wife's sexual relationship was dead, adding another layer to what makes it controversial, including the power dynamic many are so against, not just by fans that were in a malleable state of mind. Other than the circulation of videos coming out against Ryan Haywood were the many poorly aged videos of the Rooster Teeth team discussing him, including this animation where he makes up the excuse that he missed a flight after an event but most likely stayed intentionally to visit a fan.
So, I scheduled the pickup, the Uber pickup.
Okay.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, no one came.
Oh.
No one came
It's
for like an
never
hour and a
failed me.
half.
There's also this other video where the team discusses what seems to be Ryan's frustration with his life at home.
Forth with Ryan on the last ghost hunt we went on about leaving the next day of like getting home because like Jeremy and I were on super early flights. You were going to Boston, I was coming back home. But
and
we
I
were
did
on like the same
standby
flight.
on your flight just to hope to get home earlier.
Right, like 5 hours earlier
Yeah.
because you're like, shit, I get home at like noon instead of 5.
If you're home, I could see Meg.
Yeah.
She was streaming.
Yeah,
It didn't
yeah.
matter.
But Ryan was
Degenerate.
like, yeah, but Ryan was just like, oh, why you gotta go home? Just sleep in. I'm like, I mean, I'll just sleep in when I get home. He's like, yeah, you gotta get up early, you gotta travel, you gotta get home, like just stay in the hotel and just sleep here until you get home. And I was like, yeah, but I wanna get home. I was like, I can just as easily get home and go to sleep at home. And he's like, what's the difference then? If you're sleeping here and you wake up and you fly home, or you fly home now and go to sleep, like you sleep and you're gonna wake up, and I'm like, yeah, but I can sleep like in my own bed. You know? Like
I
that's
do shit.
That's like comfy.
Yeah.
I can like fuck around. It's just I was like, it's nice
You're
to
home,
be
you're
like
comfy,
at
yeah.
my house or whatever. And he's like, you're not fucking sleeping. You got 2 kids. They're gonna be running all over the place. And I was like,
It's like a cry for help for
well,
Ryan.
I was like, well, one of them isn't doing shit, Ryan. She's a baby. She just
lump at
exists.
this point, yeah.
And 2, I'll just close the door and Lindsay will watch Iris. I'm not gonna. He goes, my wife's not gonna watch them. They're gonna be all over me. I don't get a fucking second at home. And I'm like, and now we've gotten to the bottom of this. Ryan's
This
like,
has nothing to do with
Ryan
me at
was
this
just
point.
like, oh my god, I just want to sleep for 5 hours before I go home to that nightmare.
This situation is actually still developing from his attempted comeback and immediate ban on Twitch, and the startings of a lawsuit directed at him and Rooster Teeth from an anonymous person. As for Adam Kovic, having his name attached to the ongoing controversy had few accusations thrown against him, like when a video leaked of him and his wife having intercourse in the Rooster Teeth offices, or the many nudes that were leaked by an alleged catfish. His accusations pale in comparison to that of Ryan's, but both got similar treatment of being fired by the company that after the shock tightened the rules to avoid this from happening again. Even Jeff was targeted when he, at a point, dated somewhat of a fan that didn't go anywhere because he felt it strange that she knew her through his internet fame, and that much could not be reciprocated. This being between 2 consenting adults had the community supporting him and often noting he did not have to divulge any of this information. Others, like Jack and Michael, shared their opinions about what was happening and were as disappointed and blindsided as the community.
First information came out, we all wanted to just assume that it was fake or exaggerated or somehow taken out of context, and day after day it just became more and more apparent that it wasn't, and it just it happened, and it happened for a long time, and none of us, I mean, I say none of us knew, but it was like getting hit by a fucking train.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was, I sat literally on the next desk from that monster for years, and I had no idea any of this stuff happened. And like Michael said, when the first kind of report came out, I was like, maybe it's a deep fake, maybe this is bullshit. And then no, it is not. And everything you're seeing is true. Like, we've been here so long. Michael, you've been here, God, it's so damn long. And it's like, we've built up so much stuff, and we've worked towards something amazing and building this legacy, and to have one person come in and fuck it up so bad. But we'll be back. We're gonna be back. We're gonna learn from this. I mean, we didn't know anything.
It was hard to find anything good that happened for Rooster Teeth in 2020. Actually, there is more than just their crumbling reputation. Their animation department was at its worst yet. Not for the terrible crunch times of the years prior, but because these shows were getting terrible reviews. RWBY had been on a slow decline in reviews since its release, but did well to not dip below a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. That was until 2020 when Volume 7 was rated at a 6.1 out of 10. Then Volume 8 released in 2021 at 4.5 out of 10. The state of Red vs. Blue was not much better with the release of Red vs. Blue Zero, a season that put new characters into the limelight, and the silver lining was the fast-paced, non-stop action. On the opposite end of the quality spectrum was the new characters and, for that matter, the writing. This is the first episode of Red vs. Blue Zero as it was uploaded to YouTube. The following episodes arrived at a later date because the rest of the season was initially reserved for the Rooster Teeth website. Even the most uninteresting episodes of Red vs. Blue in the past went over millions of views. The season premiere of Zero on YouTube had a little over 600,000. The next episodes later released on YouTube had a sixth of that. Episodes after never broke 100,000 views, putting into question if the animation costs were worth it in contrast to the revenue from advertisements and the subscriptions on the Rooster Teeth website that at this point, not even receiving all of Rooster Teeth's animations exclusively with it appearing on other platforms first or never getting to Rooster Teeth at all. What was just covered was the last 2 years where the three pillars of Rooster Teeth, its reputation, its animation, and its non-scripted personality-based content collapsed. And just like Bernie did when numbers were declining in 2014, there are articles reporting that AT&T wants to sell the company. Even RTX was cancelled due to the coronavirus. There are few saving graces left for the company. And now that we are here, we can look back at its overarching, inevitable end. You can look on YouTube and find it rare for any other channels, Rooster Teeth, Funhaus, Sugar Pine 7, Achievement Hunter, and Let's Play to break over 100,000 views per video. Really only Gavin's channel, Slow Mo Guys, continues to perform as well as it did before. Why? It's because there is a lack of saturation in slow-mo videos, and that it's still being headed by him. Not the same can be said for the hollow channels that's corpses are being puppeteered by some old and newer members. It is not a coincidence that YouTube exploded in popularity and various channels were erected for various niches that caused the overall growth for Rooster Teeth to stagnate. They were only growing when they were years ahead of others with their animations, Let's Plays, and sense of community. But everyone caught up, and few things are unique to them. A company that was set on growth by recruiting outstanding talents to launch their own shows were never again able to recapture that lightning in a bottle. As proof, we can take a look back at Google Trends, where today, as many people search up Rooster Teeth as they did at a peak in 2004. With as many properties as Rooster Teeth is balancing, it is barely able to compete with a weekly show created by 5 people in the late 2000s. To add salt to the wound, the company Jeff, Bernie, and Gus worked for won support that they had early roles in and were offered leadership positions before leaving has now over 1,000 employees. This begs the question, if they stayed, would they have been more successful? On one hand, they would not have launched a company that, as Jeff laments, puts barriers in their friendships as it expanded. And on the other hand, Rooster Teeth and its many properties and memories would have failed to exist. Perhaps it's more of a miracle that where channels live for about 2 years on average on YouTube, their company has existed and put out online content for about 19 years. And maybe a few more unless they are unable to find a property as unique as Red vs. Blue, RWBY, or Achievement Hunter. Their company disbanding seems more and more inevitable with each coming day. Outlasting that are the memories its success brought. Even with some of it tainted by its controversial ex-employees, its fanbase has already outlived this sinking experiment of a faux ship of Theseus.